All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and our latest RBT practice exam, where we're going through the set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Be sure to check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including practice exams, study guides, and of course, our famous combo pack. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, get to our questions. Number one, after a long flight, Sam catches a cold. He cannot stop coughing, so he takes cough medicine, which prevents him from coughing for up to 4 hours. The cough medicine functions as what? So, reinforcement, punishment questions. Remember our steps on reinforcement and punishment questions. You can either start with, did the behavior increase or decrease? Or you can start with, did we add or remove something? Let's go with, did the behavior increase or decrease? So, we know Sam catches a cold. He cannot stop coughing. So in response to coughing, he takes cough medicine, which prevents him from coughing. So in the future, when he's coughing, what does Sam do? He takes more cough medicine. So has his behavior increased or has it decreased? Well, his behavior has increased and maintained because when he takes cough medicine, it prevents him from coughing. So we know taking or preventing him from coughing acts as reinforcement. Now, ask yourself, when he's prevented from coughing, was something added or something taken away? Well, the cough is removed. So through the use or through the act of taking cough medicine, his cough is removed, which increases his behavior of taking cough medicine in the future. So when something is removed, which increases behavior in the future, we consider that negative reinforcement. So if we look at positive reinforcement, we know that's not it because the cough was removed. Negative reinforcement is what we're looking for. Something was removed and increased. And then punishment is not what we're looking for because his behavior didn't decrease. So our answer is going to be negative reinforcement. That's all there really is to reinforcement and punishment questions. The more you break it down like that, the quicker you'll get and the easier you'll get. The key, as always, is identifying the right antecedents and consequences. So we know coughing is our antecedent, taking cough medicine is a response. The consequence is his cough goes away. And the consequence is what's going to act as that punisher or reinforcer. 2, if you wanted to teach someone how to cook a meal step by step following a recipe and you wanted to start with gathering ingredients, you would most likely be using what procedure? Okay, let's break this down. You're looking for some sort of specific procedure where you're going to teach someone how to cook a meal step by step. So already, what are you thinking? Well, you should be thinking chaining. Chaining involves us teaching steps systematically. If we're going to follow a recipe and you want to start with gathering ingredients. Now, if we're going to start with gathering ingredients, is that more likely to appear at the beginning of the chain or at the end? Well, much more likely at the beginning, right? So if you're going to start with the beginning of the chain, what procedure are you going to use? A, forward chaining. Well, most likely, right? You're going step by step, starting at the beginning. Sounds like forward chaining to me. B, backwards chaining. Backwards chaining would be the last step, which is most likely eating the meal. And we're not starting there, so we're not going to backwards chain. Total task chaining, you're teaching the whole chain as one, all the tasks at once. But our question says we're going to go step by step. And that's the key, right? That's why we have to read carefully. We're going step by step, meaning we're teaching each individual step one by one, starting at the beginning. And then a behavior chain interruption strategy simply says in the middle of a chain, we'll change one of the steps to evoke a new behavior. Now, what we're doing here, because we're just teaching the chain. So if we're going step by step from the beginning, you're most likely going to be using forward chaining. Gab just graduated high school and wants to start working. He prints out some interview questions and starts to practice answering the questions with his dad. What would the primary goal be for Gav as it relates to the interview questions? Now, the question tells you something very important. Okay, we're looking at the interview questions and the goal for Gav as it relates to this. And that's very important because we want to make sure we're focused on what the question is asking. We know Gav wants to start working. He's going to practice answering questions with his dad. So this can lead to all kind of different goals, right? There's a million goals we could write to get somebody ready to work. The question wants you to focus, though, on the interview questions. So if we're focusing on interview questions, what's our primary goal going to be? A, Gav would learn how to dress for an interview. Well, before he getting dressed for the interview, we need to be sure of something else, right? And besides, dressing for the interview is not really related to the interview questions. We're talking about goals related to the questions. B, Gav would need to start applying for jobs. Sure, if he wants to work, he has to apply for jobs. But we're a long way from applying for jobs, right? We need to teach him how to do that. And again, not related to interview questions. C, Gav would want his interview answers to generalize. Yes, this is what we're looking for. It's not enough that he's practicing with his dad. It doesn't matter if he can engage in an interview with his dad. What needs to happen is he has to be able to interview at job sites and the natural environment. These skills need to generalize for Gav to be successful. And then D, Gav would want to get 100% of questions right in the practice setting. Well, 100% is rarely realistic, and especially in a free-flowing interview conversation, right? Right and wrong is very subjective. Besides, being in the practice setting is not going to get him where we need to go. We need this skill of answering these interview questions to start to generalize. Only when he can generalize the interview questions and engaging in an interview will he actually be able to obtain these jobs. So the key here was focusing on the interview questions and thinking about what's going to be socially valid for Gav. What's going to be socially valid is his skills translating to the real world. In other words, his skills need to generalize. 4, a behavior technician wants to teach their client how to raise their hand. The technician wants to shape the behavior so that the arm is fully raised until the client is called upon. How will the behavior technician start the procedure? Again, let's read carefully. We are looking at starting the procedure. And what procedure would that be? Well, the technician wants to shape the behavior. So how are we going to start the shaping procedure? Now we know shaping involves reinforcing approximations of behavior. And when you're shaping, you really want to start at the lowest possible response that is needed. In this case, we want the client to raise their hand to the point their arm is fully raised. Where are we going to start? A, reinforce when the client raises their arm halfway. Now, if we are just starting out teaching them to raise their hand, getting that hand halfway is a pretty big ask. We might not see that very often. So we probably want to start a little simpler. B, reinforce when the client fully raises their arm. Well, that's considered our terminal behavior. That's the behavior we want to see, and that's going to come at the very end. C, reinforce when the client makes any arm movement upwards. Good. When you're shaping, at the very beginning, you're looking for any approximation, any sign of the response occurring. In this case, if that arm starts moving upwards, we're going to reinforce. D, reinforce when the client claps their hands. Not the topography we're looking for, not the behavior we're looking for. We need that arm moving upwards in a raised fashion. So we are going to reinforce at the beginning of shaping whenever the client makes any arm movement upwards. Very important to remember in shaping that we're looking for approximations, right? And as they get better and better, we can increase the complexity or the difficulty of the approximation. But at the beginning, we want a lot of reinforcement very quickly for the movements we're trying to see. In this case, arm fully raised, our goal. Whenever the client makes any arm movement upwards, we're going to start reinforcing. 5, a token system is now in place and is to be used even when the learner is at home. The parent should deliver the token when. Okay, put yourself in a situation where you're explaining a token system. You might be in that spot one day. So we know it's in place and it's going to be used at home. Parent wants to know, when do I deliver the token? So what are you going to tell them? A, whenever the learner engages in the target behavior. Now be careful. What kind of reinforcement schedule would this represent? It would represent a continuous reinforcement schedule. And we know not every token system is continuous. So we need to be more specific. B, according to the written reinforcement schedule. Much better, right? B is really what we're looking for. That reinforcement schedule will tell the parent exactly when they need to deliver reinforcement, whether it's time or responses. Now, do we pick B and move on? We always read all of our answer choices. C, according to the written reinforcement schedule and as close to the target behavior as possible. Good. So not only do we get the written reinforcement schedule, we also get the closeness. Now remember, closeness of reinforcement to the response is very important. If they're delivering that token 5 minutes later, not going to have the same effect. They need to deliver that token immediately when that response occurs. So the parent must deliver the token according to the written reinforcement schedule and as close to the target behavior as possible. Number 6, a response cost procedure begins with a client who will refuse to transition away from his computer to the work table. The client previously enjoyed being around the behavior technician, but now hides when the technician arrives at the house. What most likely happened? Interesting. We have a scenario where we begin a response cost procedure, which is a punishment procedure, a negative punishment procedure. It begins with the client, and what happens is the client previously enjoyed the technician, but now hides when the technician arrives at the house. Why do you think that happened? Even if you don't know, think just simplest explanation. If this technician starts using this negative punishment procedure, and now all of a sudden the client hides and doesn't want to be around the technician, what likely happened here? A, the response cost was effective. Well, we have no idea. We have no idea, did that transition behavior change? So we can't say for sure whether it was effective, whether it wasn't. B, the behavior technician became inaversive. Good. This is what we're looking for. One threat or one consequence of using a punishment procedure is sometimes the person implementing the punishment becomes aversive themselves. We need to be very careful as technicians to use punishment as directed. And if you notice that your client maybe views you more aversive than before, you've got to speak up. It's very possible that this could occur. C, the behavior technician is an unconditioned punisher. Well, they wouldn't be unconditioned, right? They were conditioned due to pairing with the response cost. And then D, the response cost was not effective. Again, there's no way to know. We can't tell that. What we do know is previously the client enjoyed them. Now they hide once the punishment procedure began. So what happened most likely was the behavior technician became inaversive. 7, if you are a behavior technician and your supervisor instructs you to evaluate the client's environment, what type of assessment would you conduct? All right, kind of like a definition question. Not too challenging, right? But not every question is going to be challenging. Some of them are going to be easy, and that's great. This is kind of a fluency check, right? If we are going to evaluate the environment, just the environment, okay, keyword environment, what type of assessment are we going to conduct? A, direct assessment. Remember, direct assessment directly observes the client's behavior. We're not looking at behavior. We're looking at environment. B, preference assessment. Again, we're not evaluating the client here. We're evaluating their environment. Same with C, functional analysis. Functional analysis is looking at the function of the behavior. We're manipulating things around the client. An ecological assessment is one that evaluates the environment. So if we are just going in and analyzing the client's environment, we are conducting what is called an ecological assessment. Maybe you've heard that, maybe not. If you haven't, let's add that to our repertoire. The more knowledge you have, the better you'll be. All right. So it's a good fluency check. If we're going to evaluate the environment, just the environment, we're doing an ecological assessment. 8, if you wanted to report the frequency of your teacher saying the word what would you report? Okay, don't be tripped up by this one. It's very easy at first glance, but can be a little tricky. We want to report frequency. That's what we're looking at, okay? So frequency is what? Frequency is count. So we're going to report a count. Now, look at A, 26 times per class. So we have count. We also have time. A would actually be rate. Rate is frequency per time. We're just looking for frequency. 26 total seconds. That's actual time. Now we're looking at duration. C, 26 times, is our count. Now we're talking frequency here. Okay. C is what we're looking for. D, 26 seconds from one to the next would be into response time. Don't be fooled by A. A is rate. C is frequency. They are different things, okay? Rate has a time component. Frequency is just our count. If you're going to report the frequency, you're going to report just how many times it happened, just the count. And then finally, 9, differential reinforcement is composed of what 2 strategies? So differential reinforcement is composed of 2 main strategies, or 2 principles in ABA. Our principles are reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. The differential reinforcement involves what? A, reinforcement and punishment. It's not reinforcement and punishment. It's going to be B, reinforcement and extinction. Differential reinforcement, we reinforce target behavior. We put these other behaviors on extinction. C, punishment and extinction. No, that does not involve punishment. And then D, reinforcement only. No, to be differential reinforcement, we need both. We need reinforcement and extinction. All right, great. Thank you for watching. Make sure you check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Let us know when you pass so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. As always, work hard, study hard. See you soon.